What's up, guys? Good afternoon. We're going to be picking up where we left off here. One more video about these new assistants, and then we'll get back to the regularly scheduled videos. But I want to take some time to talk about one more guy here, not Jake Peets. We already talked about him. Already talked about Nick Perry. Already went into Kennedy Polamalu. Tyson Prince is the guy. Tyson Prince is the last guy on this list that we haven't spoken on yet. Carl Scott, obviously, is a carryover from the old regime. But Tyson Prince is new, assistant wide receiver coach. So let's get him up on the list. I did think we were probably going to hire an assistant wide receiver coach. So Tyson Prince fills that role, occupies that responsibility. And Tyson Prince is a coach that's been around for a little while. He's only spent 1 year in the NFL, but he does have a decent amount of collegiate experience. And the interesting thing here is that some of his collegiate experience was under Ryan Grubb, both at Washington and at Fresno State. So this is a hire that Ryan Grubb is probably behind because this is somebody he liked working with. So working backwards in Tyson Prince's resume. Most recently, he was the Sacramento State wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator. Seemed to do a fairly respectable job. Sacramento State had a pretty good season. The quarterback play was decent, all right. Pretty much as good as you're going to get at a place like Sacramento State, probably. And he did have some notable receivers. Jared Gibson made, I want to say, second team. Hold on, they have it listed here. Yeah, he was second team All Big Sky. Had a nice season for them. Carlos Hill was also good for them. Anderson Grover. It was actually a deep receiver room. A lot of guys playing impactful roles on this team. So he did pretty good at Sacramento State as the full-on wide receiver coach. So that's earned him a ticket back to the NFL now. But the year before that might be even a little more interesting. He was an offensive quality control coach for UW, working mostly with the wide receivers. And if you guys watch all my videos, you know all about those 2022 Washington Huskies and their receivers. They were a really, really good team, a really, really good offense, top 10 offense. Receivers, I mean, my God, Jalen McMillan had a monster year. Romo Odunze, I guess is what it is, monster year. Jalen Polk, breakout year. Now he's expected to be like a top 60 pick in the draft. Giles Jackson, you could throw him in there a little bit as well while you're here, but this is a very impressive year to say I worked with the UW receivers. Like, look at this. It might be, it's at least in the conversation for best receiver core in the country. Them and like Ohio State, obviously, because they had Marvin Harrison and JSN. But this is right up there with any of them. And obviously McMillan's star has faded a little bit because he didn't have a good 2023, but he was great in 2022, like really. So that is great. Before that, he spent a year as an offensive graduate assistant at Boise State. So he was with the Broncos here during a season where their offense was about average. Nothing too stand out here. Didn't really have a good quarterback this year. Nothing really stands out except maybe Khalil Shakir at receiver during this time. But again, if you're looking at him as a wide receiver coach, Khalil Shakir is somebody that you can point to and go, hey, that's a guy that he worked with in college and turned into a guy who is now a fairly decent NFL player. So that's promising too. So even something like this, I think, is encouraging. So that's not too bad. 2020 was his 1 year in the NFL. He was with the Detroit Lions as an assistant focusing on tight ends primarily. And this was a year where the Lions had one of the best tight ends in the league in TJ Hawkinson. Now, Hawkinson's been good for years without Tyson Prince. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but still a good year, still a good result for him, working with one of the best tight ends in football, a Pro Bowler this year, by the way, at only 23 years old. 2019, let's see here. Yeah, he was at Fresno State. So that's another place where he's working with Ryan Grubb. So at Fresno State in 2019, results were not great. The offense was okay, 58th out of 130th teams. You take a look at the players that they had. This was not one of the years where they had Jake Haener. Jalen Cropper would go on to become a player of some note, and I think Cam Sutton would as well. But it certainly wasn't a great collection of talent that they had on the offense at this time. But the results were decent. The results were workable. So I look at that and I go, okay, I can definitely get behind this. And before then, he was a student assistant working with the wide receivers at Michigan State from 2016 to 2018. Now, going back this far, you're not going to find too much great. The Michigan State Spartans offense was abysmal. during this 3-year run, 126th, 96th, and 104th. And as for anything notable in the receiver core, Connor Hayward would go on to be drafted, and that's about it, right? Connor Hayward would go on to be drafted by the Steelers. That's it. It's kind of a dead zone for Michigan State offensive players during this time period, admittedly. So that stuff doesn't look stellar on a resume. I will grant you that. But the recent stuff is nice. I like this recent stuff. The experience under Grubb. The fact that Grubb worked with him twice tells me that he liked him. And now he's bringing him back a third time. That tells me he really likes him. The Boise State stuff is respectable too. So, seems like a good hire. And it's somebody who can learn under a more experienced wide receiver coach in Frisman Jackson. So, I can get behind the hire for whatever it's worth. And I understand it's a very low-level position. But every little bit can matter. And like I said, that's it. That's it for the new coaches. Now, we're not done hiring them in all likelihood. I will probably have to make a couple more videos about future hires, but we are near capacity at this point, right? Because you look at the remaining gaps. Running game coordinator. A lot of teams will take one of their random coaches on defense and just make them the running game coordinator. We may end up doing that. We may say, hey, Kirk Olivadotti, hey, Chris Partridge or Jeff Howard, you want to be running game coordinator? And they would be like, yeah, sure. So that's a possible way to fill that out. Assistant defensive line coach I've left open. If we have one, I think we will, but you never know. Defensive back coach is blank, but realistically, Carl Scott is probably just going to play both roles, and we're not going to hire anyone individual. So for now, we can just kind of put Carl Scott there and probably feel pretty good about that. And then you just have the assistant defensive back coach, which I imagine we're going to get one of those. But obviously, again, we're way down the pecking order here. We're way down the hierarchy. So we are mostly there. And obviously, we're probably going to create some more roles for some more guys. We're going to have more offensive assistants. We're going to have more defensive assistants. We're going to have interns. All coaching staffs have those things. We still need a strength and conditioning coach, I guess, as well, if we're going to be flipping things over there. But taking a look at this staff, it is probably 95% of the way there in terms of stuff that is really impactful. And it's 85% of the way there in terms of just filling out the names. So I'm liking the way this is shaping up. It's a good mix of guys who haven't done this before and guys who have done this before. The guys who haven't done this before seem to have tremendous potential and upside. So I'm really intrigued to see where this goes, and I'm willing to give this some time. Believe me, there will not be any I'm calling for somebody's head after the first season, because this has the potential to produce a great result, I believe, but it's going to potentially take more than just one season to realize it. Again, there is still plenty of inexperience at the top here with McDonald, Grubb, and Dirty, or AD, excuse me. And we may have to work through that. And I got no problem with that as long as we're working towards something special. Seems to me that we are. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Another video probably coming later today. Again, we've kind of gotten knocked off schedule here, but this is what happens when you're putting together a new coaching staff. See you guys soon. Go Hawks. Thanks for watching. And another video coming later today.